The actions have not translated into better economic prosperity for everyone. What it's done is it's deviated the economy more and more between the top 10% and the bottom 90. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago here on the show, is that today you look at stock ownership, 10% of the economy owns 88% of the stock market. When we come out of this cycle, it'll be like 5% owns 88% of the economy. The wealth gap is going to get bigger. The haves are going to have more. The have-nots are going to have less. And you're going to see more and more economic disparity coming out of this economic cycle. When we recover, and by the way, we will recover. We're not doomed to be where we are in the second quarter of this year forever. The economy is going to recover, but that's not really the issue. What the issue is what the economy looks like after we recover. The Federal Reserve has stopped allowing the economic process to happen, that cleansing that's needed every now and then, the culling of the herd, so to speak. That's a healthy process. Corrections in the markets are a healthy process. It gets rid of excess valuations, gets rid of overvaluations. It gives you better opportunity to put capital to work at a cheaper price, and it makes you wealthier over time if you manage it right. But these are things that we have determined that we don't like because they're short-term painful. We don't want the short-term pain, but what we wind up doing is creating a longer-term problem. When you look at this out of context, put this into some focus here, right? So the Atlanta Fed right now, based on the real-time data coming in, is looking at a 50% or greater decline in GDP in the second quarter. So quarter two, 50% lower. You got to be careful with that. That doesn't mean the economy just got cut in half. This is the year-over-year change at an annualized rate that's reported. Now, what does that mean? Let's say that the economy, let's just say January the 1st to January the 1st, year over year, the economy earned $1. So we had January the 1st of 2019, the economy earned $1. On January 1st of 2020, the economy earns less. Now, how much less is it to make a 50% decline? It doesn't mean that the dollar became 50 cents. It doesn't mean we cut the economy in half. What is 50% divided by 4? It's 12.5%. Okay? So what it would mean is that to get a 50% decline in GDP in the first quarter of 2020, based on our example here of $1, that means the dollar of GDP that we had in 2019 becomes 87.5 cents. There's a 12.5% decline in the first quarter of 2020. That's what we're talking about here. Now, 12.5% decline, by the way, is about 4 times larger than any other point in history going back when we first started actually publishing the data in 1947. So don't mistake the fact that 12.5% isn't a huge number. It is. Going back to the financial crisis, the long-term growth trend of real GDP, now that's GDP adjusted for inflation, the long-term linear trend of growth going back to 1947 ran along a pretty smooth line. And it was about 3.5% a year that we were growing at on a real inflation-adjusted basis. Post the financial crisis, we recovered. That recovery, though, never got back to the long-term 3.5% growth trend. We grew at about 2.2% post the financial crisis. Now, here's the problem. This is all subject to the amount of debt and deficits that we continue to increase and run. Debts and deficits reduce economic growth. Coming out of this crisis, expectations are we will recover. There's no doubt about that. We will recover. We will get back to a growth trend. But is that growth trend going to be back to where we saw even post-financial crisis?
No, and actually, it's funny, Lance. We've both been working on the same thing, and we talk all the time, so it's not surprising we both kind of latched on to the same topic. I put out an article yesterday. You got one coming out, I believe, Monday. I'm going to have another one in a week or two. They all point to the same thing, and they all get there using different math, different ways, different economics. What's very misleading is a recession is defined as 2 quarters in a row with negative GDP. But a recession is really a hole. you have a flat line, you have a hole, and then you get back to where you started, right? The recession really should be that whole period of time until you can get GDP back to where it was before the hole started. So we're using the word recovery because hopefully, and I think everyone agrees that we're within a month or 2 or 3 of the bottom of the hole. The problem is we're not going back to the top of that hole anytime soon. So when we talk about V or Nike Swish or whatever else, we're trying to describe the shape of that hole. What we've done to ourselves during this crisis, and forget whether it's right or wrong what we did, we've put a whole new onus on the economy that was already, like you said, after 2008, that was evidence that all of that stimulus, much of which was just wasted money, hurts the economy in the future. And actually, if you look at 2002, the growth rate post-2000 versus prior to 2000 was less. The cost of not letting recessions run as they should and trying to prematurely take us out of recessions comes at a future cost. It's not surprising. This stuff isn't free.
You do have the right to protest, and it's a very important right, but you don't have the right to harm others and to destroy property, and especially when this is becoming an organized situation where we're not, organizing protests is fine, but shipping in bricks to a town before the actual protests arrive, encouraging people, shipping people in to spark a riot and to really create destruction and mayhem, that is not good. That is not a good thing to have happen, and that's something that we as citizens should also not participate in, but also act against. We should make sure that groups like Antifa do not have a foothold in our country. That's not what we want. That's not the type of environment that we want, and if you're involved with that type of thing, you should not be, because it disrespects all the people who have lived and fought and died to give you the right to have the ability to peacefully protest. Don't ruin it for everybody else.